My name is Douglas Mackenzie. I'm a physician in Santa Barbara here. I'm a plastic surgeon. I'm not a primary care doc. However, I did spend a number of years in the military, in the reserves. I was a flight surgeon, so I had some primary care experience, but with adults. And in fact, part of that, I was head of the immunology section, which was simply where vaccines were given in my medical group. But I'm a plastic surgeon by trade.
So, in those days of being in the military and training, also, you were pro-vaccine, is it safe to say?
Yes. I was pro-vaccine. And what's interesting to me now is that I wasn't really even aware that there was anything but a pro-vaccine physician. So it wasn't like I had been trained to look at both sides or consider the risks of vaccine. I would occasionally get a member that might ask my opinion about a certain vaccine, or if they were going to be deployed about the anthrax or something like that, which, by the way, we did not give where I was. So we just give the normal vaccines to adults again, and a couple extra ones that military members got.
So you administered vaccines?
I didn't myself, but had oversight over the folks that did.
Right.
So yeah, I was pro-vaccine. This was a few years ago, and then I just kind of started getting curious about vaccination. I was going to be starting another family. I gotten remarried, so we had considered we were going to be having a child. So somehow I came across Mayor Eisenstein's book, Educate Before You Vaccinate. So I read that, and of course he mentions how his practice and other unvaccinated practices or unvaccinated people like the Amish had little or no autism. Wow, that's interesting. So then, again, I was just kind of curious about the whole thing, and I kept hearing this Andy Wakefield guy on television, and maybe I caught one of the interviews, the Anderson Cooper perhaps. That was intriguing to me, how the media was just so in a froth over this British doctor. So I decided to actually do my own research, and I bought his book, and I read his book, and that's kind of when the light bulb went off.
Callous disregard?
Yes, right. So I read his book, and as you know, his book is basically his defense of what had happened to him and how he got railroaded by the system and the media and whatnot. So I kind of saw where this was going, and then but his book didn't really talk a lot about vaccines and didn't learn a lot about vaccines in general. So from there I probably read Suzanne Humphrey's book. All right, so
good stuff. You're reading good material,
right? And so it would be wonderful if all physicians could read these books, because it would blow their minds, because they don't get any of this stuff. So I read Suzanne Humphrey's book, and that's where I kind of learned about the history that I never learned in medical school, right? And there it just kind of went from there. So basically, I've just been reading books, doing a lot of reading, and the thing of it is, I've read Paul Offit's books too. It's not like I've just read these anti-vax books, right? I've read Paul Offit's book, and I've read Seth Manookian, and I've seen the other blogs and science-based medicine and all this. I know both sides, and I didn't have any dog in the hunt, right? So I didn't have a vaccine-injured child. I have a 20-year-old also who is completely vaccinated. So I'm a physician who's coming at this thing open-minded, no axe to grind, nothing to prove, and I've read both sides. I continue to educate myself. I got active in California 2 years ago when the whole SB 277 thing was going, and somebody told me about it. I knew nothing about it, and realized it was working itself through the through the legislature. So I was kind of late to the party with that. But I've just kind of had a whole 180-degree turn, and I think that any physician who will do their own research and look at the science, okay, and look at the both sides of this, and look where the biases are, and look at the bad epidemiology that's out there, will have a change of heart. That's assuming they don't have a lot at stake. And I realize that a lot of physicians do have a lot at stake. So that's basically my story.
We're hearing from the doctors that don't make any money from vaccines. So the paediatricians, very few will speak to us, and the ones that do speak to us just simply don't vaccinate or rarely do. We had one paediatrician that said if he doesn't keep everything up to date with all his, that's why they throw us out if we won't vaccinate, they get $700,000 a year. That's their incentive to
kickbacks
vaccinate.
from insurance or whatnot, the incentives. Yeah, I mean, I think that's true in many cases, and I can't really speak to that because, again, I'm not a primary care physician. I'm not a pediatrician. I mean, I've heard some, like Paul Thomas, say that can be true in certain programs, depending on the state and which programs, insurance programs they might be with, their practices. But beyond that, I mean, I don't think it's all about the money, really, too. I think it's more that physicians are just simply, they've been brainwashed from the first day of medical school. And it's just that they don't get the alternative views, and they don't read the huge amount of science that supports the dangers and the risk of vaccines and what's in the vaccines. They just don't know about the stuff. Or they'll just quote the AAP guidelines, or they'll quote the CDC, or they'll quote Paul Offit, and they're not doing their own reading and their own analysis of these things. And for example, they'll take some of the MMR studies, for example, and that'll be kind of the, MMRs don't cause autism, right? So many studies. If you just look at the list, right, they say that, but they don't look at, are these studies valid, right? The epidemiology of these things is so bad, with healthy user bias and various biases that are built into these things. That's what no one analyzes, okay? So, and I'm talking about just general clinical physicians, and that's what they've got to realize. When Paul Offit says that autistic kids don't have central nervous system inflammation, right? But we know from a Vargas study that they do, or various other studies that have shown inflammatory mediation in the brain, like Suzuki and whatnot. I mean, it's there. So they're relying on this argumentation by authority from people like Offit to just spout little vaccines don't cause autism, and that's the whole culture. It's like a religion. It's a whole culture that's been ingrained in medicine, and that's what I want to help be part of. One of those people that switch that.
Thank you. How, from just an outsider looking in, how can Paul Offit get away with what he does? And when we met up with him, well, we didn't mean to, but our cameraman did. He was about to give a talk to a load of young medical students. How is he allowed to do that when he's spouting things that are completely untrue? And as is his son Japan getting away with saying dreadful things as well that are completely untrue. How are these people are in this position?
They're like, certainly Paul Offit and the people that he goes around with are sort of like the high priests of this. I mean, he's written a book. Look, if you take Paul Offit's Deadly Choices and someone just reads that book, okay, and they read nothing else, it's an engaging story. It's kind of captivating. It's interesting, and you would likely kind of be on his side and be part of that whole movement. And again, you kind of have to read what's in between the half truths that he says, right? What are the lies that he said? And I'm picking on him, but he's just
Well,
one of
prominent.
the main. Yeah, he's super prominent, right?
Yeah.
So, not to mention the millions of dollars that he's gotten through the whole, through his patents and his affiliations with the CDC and the ACIP and whatnot. So, look at the biases. I mean, I think, that kind of leads me to something maybe slightly different. I mean, to spend a couple thousand hours researching this stuff is one thing, but you don't even have to do that. It doesn't take a lot of digging. And I'm speaking to physicians primarily, to dig a little bit. Look at the corruption of the CDC, for example. You don't have to dig too long to kind of see that. You don't have to spend too many hours reading papers or reading books where you kind of see that and you go, wow, okay, the whole William Thompson story, which I'm sure you guys have gone over many times. So, look at that. Take vaccines, take the hepatitis B. Try to rationalize that whole hepatitis B situation. If there's one vaccine that makes 0 sense on any level, do that. So I would tell physicians, ask yourself, why does a day-old baby get a hepatitis B vaccine? It's just completely ridiculous. Those are some of the places that I would say start.
Did you end up having children?
I did, yes.
And
so I
are
have
they
2 children.
Vaccinated?
Well, the first one, like I said, is 20, and
Yeah.
that was when I was completely ignorant, and he got everything, and knock on wood, he's healthy. Okay. The second one is partially, and so again, when I started, I was just kind of doing this. Okay, just kind of getting into the self-educating, right? So he's had a few, and then we stopped because I was like, wow, this is no, it doesn't.
I
It's
can't
just-
tell you how healthy the unvaccinated
Yeah,
are that we are meeting.
absolutely.
It is unreal.
That's another thing. It's like, with the science, it's like, obviously, what we need to do, and it'll never get done, or they won't want to do it, is to compare vaccinated kids with unvaccinated. Of course, it wouldn't be ethical. Well, they're already out there. Just,
But
look
why
at the
we're doing it here
unvaccinated
on the
kids that are
bus.
out there, right? But it's
They
so
know that
true.
it's game over. It's game
It's
over.
game over. They will
they
never
do
do
that.
that. They will fight,
Well, the head of whoever the new head of the CDC is, will be. They can do that. They can commission that study. And if it's Dave Weldon, it is game over for everyone.
Yeah, but what is that? They ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, and then you win. Well, that's going to be a big fight.
We've ignored, laughed. Yeah, we've had all those. We're
Right?
going into the win stage now.
It's a groundswell that's happening. I mean, you are a huge part of it, but it's so many other places it's part of it. This wasn't even a discussion or on people's radar, physicians or otherwise. And now it is. I mean, with all the movies, Trace Amounts, your movie, the Vaccines Revealed, which I just started watching, which is fantastic. People are waking up. Doctors are waking up. Oh, and before I, get off the bus and forget about this, Physicians for Informed Consent.org. Okay, it's a new physicians group with a very simple mission to educate people about informed consent and to oppose mandated vaccination laws. So it's a group of physicians, MDs, and PhDs. So anyone that's watching, I would encourage you, please join.
So,
And other people can
physicians
join
for
too.
informed consent. Do you have to be a doctor to join? It's really annoying. I'd
There's
love to join.
there's another category. So yes, you can join.
All right, everybody, pass that around. Our peeps will pass that everywhere. By the way, everyone, absolutely, got loads
But
of
certainly-
hearts here. Have you got hearts? Yeah.
Yeah, and certainly tell physicians about it. MDs, DOs, PhDs, scientists that are on the right page here, or even that are on the fence but thinking about it, because I know there are a lot of physicians out there that are really uneasy about vaccines, but they are afraid to talk about it, right? They're afraid to talk about it. They're afraid to bring it up. You know, this is an organization to hopefully give them a safe space, I don't want to use that word, a safe space for physicians to come to and be a single voice on this. And it's the first organization of its kind, so it's fairly new.
What is it, like a website or a
well,
Facebook
it's
page?
a,
How are you talking between you all?
there's a meeting next month. Yes, it's a website, physiciansforinformedconsent.org, so it's a website. You can go to the website. We have our first meeting next month in Costa Mesa, so we hope to get more people to come, and we're signing up people now. We're growing quickly, but we just went with our first PR release went public a month ago, so we're a brand new organization.
Well, you know what? Anything we can do to help promote you, or it's so important what you're doing, we'll exchange things. We'll go
Sure.
out. We'll go out with any news or anything you want us to.
Well, that'd be great. That would be fantastic. Yeah.
And we meet a lot of doctors. Well, you're a brave doctor, and everybody loves you. Like I said, loads of loves and hearts. Anything else you want to say before you go?
Oh, I'm sure I forgot something that I wanted to say, but no.
Can I just ask you one quick question before you go? We're about to have a story in a minute about children that were injured after the SB277.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, guys, breaking news. That's coming in a minute. And I was honoured to be at the rally the first day that SB277. I feel like I want to say it was the 1st of July, and we said to Pan and Alan and everybody else who signed that silly, very silly law that there would be death, there would be injuries beyond belief from this day forward, and they would have blood on their hands. And absolutely that has happened, as we're about to hear from one family. Why? Here's the thing. A crime is being committed to these children that are about to be interviewed. So why are the police not called, and why is this man not arrested? Why are we? I don't understand what's going on here.
You know, I don't know. I mean, I don't know the answer to that. I mean, you know, fighting this in the courts, it's been tried. I think there are other efforts afoot to do that. I don't know how much traction they've got, how successful they will be. There's even, you know, as you know, a RICO action, a pro se RICO action, but I don't know where that will go. You know, unfortunately, the law, and case law, I mean, going back to Jacobson, Supreme Court case law, you know, is not on this side, and that's a tragedy. But if you look at you know, even going back to Jacobson, which was a Supreme Court decision in 1905, right? It had to do with smallpox. It had to do with an epidemic. The predominance is going to be on whoever is whatever the more standard of care is and whatnot. Even going back then, they didn't even bring in a lot of the science at the time, and that's kind of something that's been followed on with more Supreme Court decisions and other legal action in the you know, subsequent to Jacobson, and that just opened up the doors to states mandating vaccine laws. Okay, so even in the 1920s. The Zook decision was nothing like the Jacobson's decision, but they used that as precedent. You know, that this idea that the government is going to force vaccines really got its origin there, and it's just been kind of building. So how that gets undone, it's a tough thing. I mean, I thought a RICO action would be something that would be reasonable because, you know, you're talking about fraud, basically, in my mind. I mean, state legislators that are getting campaign money that are basically just parroting what is literally being whispered in their ear by pharmaceutical industry people and they're on the payroll of those pharmaceutical industry companies. I mean, that just, I mean, what is RICO if not that? You know, this is all the same kind of tobacco science kind of a mentality behind this. And where are the judges that will put an end to this? But they, just like everyone else, has preconceptions about vaccines, and vaccines are the greatest invention of the 20th century and saved 20 billion people and all this stuff. And that's the culture, that's the mentality, that's the religion. How do you break through that? You do it like this, with people on the ground level, more and more people, and it's happening. And then the courts will switch. There'll be a time when I think it'll switch, but right now the predominance of the weight is not on our side.
All right, well, thank you. Periscope, I'm gonna have to show you how many hearts you've got. You're gonna have to see this. See all those hearts. Look, they're coming in. So thank you, love you, thank you. There you go. You see, we're very grateful because we don't have, you know, we need more people like you to help us. So
That's great.
and that is going to go on for a long time, so you might want to watch this back.
I guess I need to load Periscope on my phone.
Yes, you do. Look at it all. It's going on and on and on and on. All right, you're a part of us now. We're so grateful to you. Thank you so much. And we're so excited about your organisation. Just tell everyone again what it is.
Physicians for Informed Consent.